Well, these are live pictures from New Zealand, already entered 2025. Quite an exciting time for New Zealand, if I must say. Happy New Year to them, by the way. Well, it is the last day of the year 2024 here in Nigeria, West Africa, where citizens are waiting to be ushered into the new year 2025. But some other countries are already in the new year. Now, the arrival of the new year definitely excites many. I'm excited as well. But let us tell you which country will be the first in the world to ring the new year. Now, the new year doesn't arrive at the same time everywhere in the world, and thanks to time zones. Now, remember, planet Earth is divided into 24 time zones, so it is not the same time or even the same day everywhere in the world. The first to party for the new year will be the inhabitants of the Pacific Islands, specifically Kiritimati Island in Kiribati, a country in Micronesia. Now, on the other hand, we have Tonga, Samoa, and some parts of New Zealand will also be amongst the first to, or even are amongst the first to welcome the new year ahead of the rest of the world. Following them, 2025 will arrive in Tuvalu, a small Pacific nation in Australia, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, and also New Caledonia. And who will be the last to welcome New Year 2025? Now, those places located at the far western edge of the planet in delayed time zones such as Baker, Howland Islands, American, Samoa, and also some parts of French Polynesia will definitely be the last. All right, let's now cross over to our international correspondent, Afua Hagan in London, for updates around the world on New Year's Eve. Afia, compliments of the season, first of all. Please go ahead and tell us what kind of year has New Zealand had?
Yes, Happy New Year in advance to you. And you're very right in saying that New Zealand, one of the first places, Auckland, there we saw those spectacular fireworks. One of the first places to ring in the new year. They are into 2025 already. Now, New Zealand has had a pretty mixed year. Some of the main headlines from New Zealand all across the year. Some news hubs closed in New Zealand. Warner Brothers shut down their news hub newsroom there. You had a power pylon collapse that caused a major outage that meant 65,000 properties were without power. You had a very monumental case about this woman called Laura Dickinson, who was sentenced for murdering 3 of her daughters in 2021. and she was sentenced to 18 years in prison. Like New Zealand, like the rest of the world, couldn't escape the cost of living crisis. And so there was public service cuts, slashing public servants to the tune of $6 million in New Zealand as well. And then the Maori king died at the age of 69, just days after celebrating the 18th anniversary of his coronation. He was in hospital recovering from heart surgery, and he died peacefully on August the 30th, surrounded by his wife and children. And that meant that there was a new Maori queen announced. She was the youngest child and only daughter of the monarch, and she became the new monarch of the Maori kingdom. Now, those are just some of the major headlines from New Zealand in 2024. And like we said, they have now crossed over into 2025. They are, in fact, living in the future.
Well, quite an interesting year they've had, 2024. But you are in London, so can you tell us how the New Year preparation is going in the UK?
Yes, I am in London, but New Year preparations aren't going exactly as planned. And that's because we have what's been described as a superstorm heading towards the United Kingdom. As we know, it is that time of year, it is storm season. And so this superstorm is going to kind of cross the whole of the United Kingdom, which is quite unusual. There are weather alerts and weather warnings out all across the country. Now, in Edinburgh and Scotland, they usually have a huge fireworks display and a Hogmanay, a New Year's Eve party that has been cancelled. And that's monumental. It's very, very rare that that is cancelled. So that has been cancelled. Celebrations in Blackpool and Newcastle towards the north of the country have been cancelled as well. Now, here in London, we usually have a huge fireworks display that takes place over the River Thames. Now, at the moment, that display has not been cancelled. However, councils all across London are on alert in case that does have to be cancelled. And that's because we're expecting high winds and torrential rain throughout the day here in London, and snow up and down the country, as well as torrential rain and those high winds as well. So, like I said, the New Year's plans aren't getting off to the best start at the moment, with lots of cancellations throughout the day. Now, the wind is picking up. When I woke up this morning, it was relatively calm, but the wind has been picking up as we move into the afternoon. So we can expect there to be more cancellations of fireworks displays and, of course, other New Year's events that are taking place up and down the country. So perhaps a quieter New Year than perhaps some people were reckoning for when they woke up this morning.
All right, Afia. Now, how are the people reacting to the cancellation of the fireworks display, amidst the worry about a storm?
It's hugely disappointing. New Year's Eve, especially in Scotland, especially in Edinburgh, is a huge deal, and people buy tickets literally a year in advance. They buy them on January 1st for December 31st, and it's a huge party. So it's usually disappointing that this has been cancelled. And up and down the country, people are very disappointed as well, but also quite concerned about the risk of flooding. There's some danger to life warnings as well because of the high winds. So there's going to be problems with traveling as well. So that will make it difficult for people to go and see relatives. So it is very, very disappointing. A lot of people having to rethink their New Year's plans. And of course, this is going to affect retailers, restaurants and bars as well that do rely on the Christmas and New Year trade. 2024 been a difficult year for the United Kingdom. The cost of living crisis and high inflation is still having an effect. And pubs and clubs and restaurants up and down the country really do rely on these bookings throughout Christmas and into New Year. So it is going to have a knock-on effect on them as well. So like I said, it is hugely disappointing.
All right, now let's talk about New Zealand. You did say that, they're ready in the future, and you listed, a few of the happenings that went down in 2024. What are your predictions on, what is expected to happen, or how 2025 would actually go for New Zealanders?
Well, I think like the rest of the world, New Zealanders definitely want to get out of this cost of living crisis. It's been something we've been talking about for a couple of years. It's a hangover from the pandemic, which when we get into 2025, it's hard to believe was 5 years ago. I think a lot of people feel like the last 5 years have kind of meshed into one big blob. Now, New Zealand was a place that wasn't as badly affected as the rest of the world, but like I said, like I mentioned, there was huge public service cuts, and that is a hangover from the pandemic and the cost of living crisis. So I think, like a lot of countries, New Zealand is hoping for more stability, for prices to come down, for inflation to come down, and for them to emerge from this hangover from COVID-19, from the cost of living crisis, and from difficulties in finance, like a lot of people around the world.
All right, now we've talked about, the first countries to, celebrate New Year's. What about the last countries? I can't imagine how it must actually feel, for them. Talk about places located far at the western edge of the planet with delayed time
Mhm.
zones. Baker and Howland Islands, American Samoa, and some parts of French Polynesia. Can you give us an idea of, what it feels like to be the last to celebrate New Year when it comes to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Because of the time zones that you talked about, people are going to be celebrating and ringing in the bells for the next 24 hours. So your last places to celebrate New Year. So this is 2 a.m. and I'm comparing that to GMT. So I am on just after 11 a.m. here. So 2 a.m. you've got Greenland, and then you've got Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay will be 3 a.m. And then parts of Canada, Venezuela, and Puerto Rico at 5 a.m. Much of the east coast of the USA, 5 a.m. as well. So that'll be midnight here in the UK, at 1 a.m. there in Nigeria. Then Mexico, and 8 a.m. the west coast of the USA, so Washington, Los Angeles. Then Honolulu, down in Hawaii at 10 a.m. Baker Island and Howland Islands at 12 p.m. A whole 12 hours after me here in the UK, people will be celebrating the new year. And of course, what about the next places after New Zealand? So we've had New Zealand, we are going to have much of Australia within the next hour, then Queensland, then Japan and China, then Indonesia, Myanmar, through Bangladesh, Nepal, most of India around 6:30 p.m., then Pakistan, Afghanistan, Azerbaijan into Iran, and then Russia and Ukraine. So that's kind of the order, moving from east through to west
Mm.
across the world.
Well, there's something about the new year that actually brings or comes with everything fresh, a new start, a new everything. And we hope, this is exactly what happens to most of the countries or all of the countries celebrating the new year this time around. Well, thank you so much, Afia, for speaking to us.
Thank you.